G'day guys and gal. It's universally accepted both in-universe and across the fanbase that a true victory for the good guys in 40k is impossible, and not just because Games Workshop's revenue depends on the setting not ending. The whole idea of raging against the dying light, each victory just delays the inevitable. That is Warhammer 40k. The only thing that isn't certain is if that inevitable ending will come in the form of galactic demonic sodomization or everyone getting eaten by a bunch of space bugs of death. But what if I said that was all bullshit and the Imperium of Man has come so close to triumphing over chaos on multiple occasions, only failing at the last moment due to great effort of the enemy, or more often than not, self-sabotage. Yeah, actually pretty much all self-sabotage. I guess chaos isn't the only faction who is its own worst enemy. Before we get started, women consistently state that some of their biggest turnoffs for men is poor hygiene, poor grooming, and I shit you not, poor manscaping. Well, cheers to Manscaped's Performance Package 4, you no longer need to worry about those issues ruining your chances with the ladies. Now it's just your personality ruining it for ya. The Performance Package 4 comes with the classic hero Lawnmower 4.0, which is a waterproof electric shaver specifically designed to reduce any nicks or cuts down there. I personally have been using mine for years and it's amazing. No more razor burn, ingrown hairs, or anything gross like that. Then there is the ball deodorant, which completely crushes smelly wiener syndrome. I use it before I train jiu-jitsu, especially on those sweatier days, or even after a large piss during a date. Then there is the ball toner, which to this day, I don't know what it does, but it smells nice. If you guys know what it does, please comment below. For the nasal or ear head of you, the package also comes with a weed whacker to sort out your nose and ear hairs. All of these, plus a free pair of boxes and a premium travel bag. It's no wonder why this is one of Manscaped's best sellers. With Christmas around the corner, this is a bloody great gift for friends or family. And to help out with that, using my link and code Majorkill below, you'll get 20% off any product store-wide and free international shipping. Cheers to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Today we'll be looking at 5 times the Imperium of Man was a flick of a dick away from permanently beating chaos, only to be thwarted in the 11th hour. Now let's get into it. Prior to the opening of the Great Rift, which low-key made Chaos unbeatable, it was commonly thought that if the Imperium could close or greatly reduce the Eye of Terror, the forces of Chaos would be pretty fucked. It would strip away the demonic powers and allies and leave their disorganized worlds very vulnerable to invasion. Then all the Imperium would have to do is the Scouring 2, Electric Boogaloo. That being said, closing the Eye of Terror is easier said than done. However, did you know that a certain radical Inquisitor once gave it a seriously red-hot crack? Inquisitor Quicksauce was a legend, being universally respected and having one of the best service histories in the entire Inquisition. Then one day, he vanished. Most people thought he had died. This wasn't the case, however. He had become obsessed with closing the Eye of Terror, so obsessed in fact that he sold his soul to gain the knowledge and power required to perform the task. After enslaving multiple demons, finding a very heretical sword, studying a fucked up chaos book, and overall just looking very demonic, Quicksauce found out that it was the Necron pylons on Cadia that was stopping the Eye of Terror from expanding. If they were overcharged or switched on, then the eye could shrink or even vanish. However, no amount of demonic knowledge will teach a man how to operate Necron tech, as the Necrons predate Chaos. So he measured out the pylons in their exact dimensions and then recreated them to the nanometer using the closest material he could to the original Blackstone of the pylons. Then he kidnapped a shitload of Alpha Plus level Psykers with the intention of overloading all the Psykers at once, sapping their godlike power into the pylon and making it mega charge, with the intention of nuking the Eye of Terror, closing it. That is a lot of ifs, and it was pretty much guaranteed that the planet he was firing from would blow up, killing all people on it. On top of that, this method of capturing so many Alpha Plus Psykers was very unsavory. He basically performed a hectic terrorist attack on a military parade and killed a fuckload of people to provide the distraction he needed to kidnap all the Alpha Plus Psykers who were being paraded. So eventually our hero, Inquisitor Eisenhorn, caught up with Quicksauce and killed him, stopping his science experiment before it could be properly activated. While this did mean stopping a corrupted Inquisitor and saving a world, it does make you wonder if Quicksauce's makeshift pylon would have done the job. After all, what is one human world compared to the hundreds or even thousands more that Chaos would destroy? Time travel is a thing in Warhammer 40k, however it is so unreliable and confusing that barely anyone is able to leverage it to gain an advantage. You either need hectic Necron tech, Dark Age of Technology tech, or seriously fucked up warp sorcery. But did you know time travel was almost used once to defeat Chaos? During the Horus Heresy, the Sisters of Silence got a call about a black ship that had gone missing in the warp. They ventured through the warp to find it, merged their Gellerfield with it, and then boarded it mid-warp. Very cool stuff. On board, they found evidence of warp taint, insanity, and all-round silly spaghetti. They discovered the original Sisters of Silence on board, who were busy attempting to contain some kind of warp abomination that had enslaved the minds of all the Psychers and crew on board, leaving only the warp-immune Sisters untouched. When 3 of the Sisters went to investigate, it was revealed that the warp abomination was actually the projected consciousness of one of those Sisters from the future, who had sold her soul and done some seriously weird shit, especially considering she was a blank and shouldn't even be able to be involved in sorcery, in order to travel back in time to give an extremely accurate warning of how the heresy would play out and what would come after. The warp abomination future sister wanted to be taken to the Emperor and tell him everything that would happen so that he could prevent it and score an overall much better end result for mankind. However, before this could happen, one of the 3 more Puritan sisters murdered the sister whose future self had appeared to them, killing both her and her future apparition. It's confusing, I know. This denied the Imperium the intel it needed to potentially save its own soul. I mean, if the Emperor knew that the Ultramarines, Dark Angels, and Space Wolves were about to arrive on Terra, he wouldn't have teleported onto Horus's flagship and risked it all. Wow. Saying risked it together is just fucking weird. That took me like 10 attempts. Like, seriously, try it. It's fucking hard as. That and a shitload more decisions could have been rectified, especially since it was a Sister of Silence who had the intel. Sisters have maximum clearance and knowledge, so she would know the details of the heresy. But no, she got a claymore shoved through her chest, and that is all she wrote. See what I mean about the Imperium being the only one to sabotage its victory? A lot of us have heard of the Bad Dab War, a vicious time where loyalist Astartes chapters murdered each other over what was basically one big misunderstanding. RIP the Lamenters. Even though the Astral Claws did end up joining Chaos and being labelled the bad guys, they originally had a good point, and if the Imperium didn't try fuck with them, they could have scored an incredibly decisive victory over Chaos that really would have put the Imperium ahead. Basically, the Astral Claws were one of the guardians of the Maelstrom, a warpy area of space that was home to a lot of Chaos followers, Traitor Astartes, and other undesirables. However, unlike the Eye of Terror, it wasn't this hellish demonic corruption realm. It could be invaded and conquered. The Astral Claws realized this after a number of successful incursions that saw them wipe out a ton of Chaos forces. They requested more reinforcements and weaponry so that they could make a push and finally cleanse the Maelstrom, freeing up a shitload of resources that could then be directed at containing the Eye of Terror. However, the request was denied, so the Astral Claws begun legion building, greatly expanding their chapter size beyond what was legally allowed, as well as withholding their taxes so that they could use their own resources to grow in power. They basically planned on cleansing the Maelstrom by themselves. However, before they could do so, the Imperium engaged them in war, eventually beating them and forcing them to flee into the Maelstrom, which they proceeded to conquer anyways. However, this time they did it as the Chaos-aligned Red Corsairs, arguably the second most powerful Chaos faction in the galaxy. Good work, Imperium, you fucking retards. If a broken Astral Claws chapter was able to conquer the Maelstrom, imagine if the Imperium had just worked with them. The Maelstrom would have been cleansed, and then we would have had a massive force of loyal Astral Claws that could be deployed to the Eye, or other pockets of chaos in the galaxy. One of the Imperium's biggest issues is that it is fighting wars on every front, but if it minimizes those fronts to just the Eye of Terror, well, at least in terms of fighting chaos, then it would get a massive advantage. Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade may very well have failed. Speaking of Abby's 13th attempt to cause a ruckus, the Imperium almost achieved a total victory here. Moments before Abaddon would throw a fit and then chuck a Blackstone Fortress Acadia. See, whilst Abaddon was invading the world, Trazyn the Infinite, a Necron genius, came to Belsarius' call and was like, "Sup bruh, I know how to turn those Necrons on and beat Chaos bruh." Hence the Cadian pylons were actually activated and the Eye of Terror begun shrinking. This is one of the only times where Chaos was the one that stopped the Imperium from beating them. If Abaddon had been unable to stop the pylons, then the Eye would have continued to shrink, the demons on Cadia would have been banished and the mortal forces slaughtered. Then Chaos would just have to watch as its Eye would constantly shrink into nothingness, leaving the traitor legions defenseless against an Imperial onslaught. Remember, closing the Eye of Terror is more or less an insta-win for the Imperium. The Eye was the only thing keeping the traitor legions safe. It was more or less unassailable. The one time the Imperium attempted to siege it ended in total disaster. And last but definitely not least, we have the Emperor's Webway project. If you were wondering how the Elder Elder, a highly psychic race, were able to ignore and overcome chaos for 60 million years, until, they kind of fucked it, literally, it was mostly because of their webway, a sort of magic tunnel that allowed the Elder to live in and travel through the warp while being totally protected from it. Mankind, on the other hand, needs to plunge into the depths of hell every time it wants to travel across the stars, constantly putting itself in contact with demons and other warp entities. The Emperor attempted to fix this by breaking into the Elder webway and claimed sections of it for mankind's use. He could then remove mankind's reliance on the warp and, as such, weaken the Chaos Gods. The end goal or result was never really explained, but the idea is that mankind was becoming an increasingly psychic race. As they did so, he would bring all the psychers into the webway, away from the warp. Then he could train them all to become anti-chaos psychic heroes, eventually meaning there would be no human psychers in real space that could feed chaos, and then when they would travel there, they would be immune to chaos. Over thousands of years, this would become the warp and kill the Chaos Gods, since humanity is their main food source. However, Magnus did something very wrong, blew a hole in the webway project and doomed mankind to an extremely slow but inevitable death at the hands of chaos. Without the webway, chaos now had an endless food source which only gets more delicious as the uncontrolled rate of psychers in humanity continues to skyrocket. The Emperor considered this to be the only way humanity could achieve true everlasting victory over chaos, which is a fair statement. In the other examples, just because the Eye of Terror gets shut doesn't mean chaos dies, it just loses its stronghold on the galaxy for a time. However, its agents and machinations would continue to plague humanity. They'd probably be able to create a new Eye of Terror given enough time. Overall, just a massive L for mankind. If the Imperium got out of its own way, then imagine the noble bright setting we could have had. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where there is not only some premium nude cosplay photos, but also a boatload of Battle Mace 40 million hentai. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more permanent content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.